You can't have a new moped. You can't have anything before it's time. You can't have a chain. You can't have a chops. You can't have a new phone. These are things that if you can't look after it, it will get taken off you.
All right, let's start our interview. Can we start, please, by you giving me your name, your age, and what you were convicted of?
My name's Siddiq Bey, commonly known as Babz. I'm 36, and I was previously convicted of manslaughter.
What was your sentence for that?
6 years.
Can you explain to me what it was like going into the prison system for you and what the experience was like inside?
To be honest, I kind of knew from a young age I was going to prison. So it was, for me, like a rite of passage. I wasn't scared. It was almost like, let's just get it over and done with. It was almost a relief because I was on bail for almost a year on suspicion of murder. So it was almost a relief when I finally got charged. But what I didn't expect was to be sent to an adult prison because I was a young offender. So they sent me to Highdown. And Highdown at the time was a ACAT prison. And there was a young offender wing in the prison. So it was expected that I was going to go on that wing. But after the first night, which I was initially charged with murder. So prisoners that are charged with murder go straight to healthcare for the first day of your stay in prison because of high suicide rates on people that are charged with murder. So they put me on healthcare, me and my cousin, and the next morning they told us that we're not going onto the young offender wing because of our intimidating presence. My cousin's about 6'4". I looked very rough and ready, so they said they're not putting us on that wing. So we were two 19-year-olds in the adult prison on the adult wing. So at first it was, I was a bit nervous, but within a day or two, I kind of saw the lay of the land and I knew that I'll be all right. And then we was at Old Bailey. So at our second or third court appearance, the bus took us to Belmarsh. So when we were told we were going to Belmarsh, I was shook. I was like, Belmarsh? Because you hear all sorts of stories. So I was thinking, well, you lot can't send me Belmarsh. But it was a similar situation to Highdown. Within a day, I saw that there's nothing to really worry about.
What kind of people were around you in the prison?
Drug users. That was my first cellmate was a heroin addict called Pat. And he taught me quite a lot, how to do a line, just kind of how to, make an application, certain things. So it wasn't as rough as I might have thought. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people there were just people that you would see on the street or see on the estate. I saw one of my friend's dads there, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like the worst people, it wasn't people that I wasn't used to being around. I was probably surprised at how many vulnerable people were in prison. I wasn't expecting majority of prisoners to be quite vulnerable.
What do you mean by vulnerable?
Like people that you could easily take advantage of. Because at the time I was a predator, so my instincts were all predatory. So the first thing I look at is who I can take advantage of. If I want something, who I can take things off. No one was really a threat, and I figured that out quite quickly. That I was always comfortable. I was always like respected, even as a young offender. So I didn't expect it to be so easy at the time.
In your experience, what do you think some of the most common reasons are for why people get into crime in the first place?
Oh, in my experience, there's quite a few. So social, economical reasons. I think when you're in a bad or deprived area, and yeah, people say that we're living in a first world country, so it's equal opportunities, and you hear it. But I grew up in South London all my life. I've seen the the lifts, the needles. I've seen the crack addicts. So the environment I grew up in, being a criminal was like, it's a culture. Yes, I did have a choice not to be one, but the push factor to be in one was very, very strong. It was very, very strong. So the push factor for me was my main entry into that world was the fact that I like to fight. So it wasn't really financially motivated at the time when I first got on the streets, because 13, 14, 15-year-old, yeah, I did want to buy, Versace shirts and Moschino trousers and iceberg trousers. So those are the things that I was robbing people for anyway. Apart from that, I didn't have like any overheads. So most of it was just, I liked trouble. I liked beating people up. I liked being a problem. You know what I mean? So for me, it was the violent aspect, and we're from a world where if you're not a certain way, the chances of you being a victim is very high. So I remember growing up in an environment where you can't have anything unless you can look after it. You can't have a new moped. You can't have anything before it's time. You can't have a chain. You can't have a chops. You can't have a new phone. These are things that if you can't look after it, it will get taken off you. Do you know what I mean? So you didn't have that option of being a sheep. It had to be a wolf. And that's something that I had to explain to my mum over the years as a kid, because she used to be like, why are you always fighting? And why are you always getting in trouble? And I'm like, if I don't fight, then I'm a victim. I got a bike at 10 years old, and that bike got stolen within 24 hours. I got robbed in the morning, and that killed me. That killed me. That was something that I said will never happen to me again. Never. It traumatized me. Like, how could I have that was like the only, probably like one of 3 things my dad's ever bought for me, and it didn't last 24 hours. So what's the alternative? I'm just going to be a victim for the rest of my life. No chance.
Do you feel like that's kind of an indication of how society has failed a lot of children in protecting them from this kind of situation and giving them opportunities to get out of those situations?
I don't know what society could do. I don't know what the answer is, because I'm on one hand, yeah, I know that the government and society play a big part, but it's also down to each family and how they raise their children. What you put in your children's head. I think people should govern their own households first before they worry about what the government's doing and what they're not doing.
Do you feel like social media has played a role in kind of glamorizing joining gangs and being a criminal, and made young people nowadays more susceptible to getting into a criminal lifestyle?
Yeah, I believe so. Social media wasn't about in my time, but it's a very big push factor. It's not even a push factor, it's a pull factor. It's a pull factor, but yeah, definitely.
What would you say to people who would say, you know, there are a lot of people who have a hard life that didn't turn to crime. Why should we give ex-offenders a second chance at life?
Yeah, I think that's a very harsh way of looking at ex-offenders, because a lot of us haven't had the opportunity to experience a different type of life, a different type of culture. I can pinpoint quite a lot of times in my life where if I didn't go down that road, I could have been something else. You know what I mean? But it's the probability of success is lower where we're from. And that's not always our fault. I've got friends whose mothers were drug addicts, prostitutes, promiscuous, dads are not around, and they are still decent people, despite the things that they've got up to. I can look at them and I can kind of understand why they've made some of the decisions that they've made, and they're generally not bad people, but I can't blame them for some of the decisions they've made at a young age that has had a ripple effect for the rest of their lives, because a lot of the mistakes we make are while we're young and we're not as informed as we are now. So we do things that literally have ramifications for the rest of our life. And I think if someone is genuinely reformed and is trying to change, why shouldn't they have an opportunity to make something out of their life?
Why do you feel that rehabilitation within the prison system is important?
Because without it, look at the people you're going to be releasing. There has to be some sort of hope for these people in jail. Can't just have people locked up, rotting away for years, and then there's no chance of redemption. That would be inhumane.
And why do you feel that AP Foundation is an important platform for creating a second chance for ex-offenders?
Because most of the people that are associated with the AP Foundation are coming from that cloth. So starting with Andrew, you know, he's from a background where he's met criminals at all levels of the game, of the streets, from low-level criminal to cartel leaders. So he's in a better position to understand how criminals will operate on each level. And, you know, people like myself, Stephen Graham, Marvin, Herbert, we've all been out here, we've all done the worst things out here, and we're trying to make a difference. So people like us have an insight view and understanding. You know, it's not just from an academic perspective. We've been out here, we've felt the pain. So when we're talking to people that haven't made that transition, we can actually show them that there is an exit strategy, and it doesn't always need to be you working in a warehouse or stacking shelves in Tesco. You can actually carve out a successful career.
What message would you give to young adults who are thinking about going down the same path as you did? You
will crash and burn eventually. It's a matter of when. It's not if. There is, you know, this game's rigged. It's rigged. And when you weigh up long term and you ask yourself, was it worth it? It's not a fair exchange for the pain that you're gonna feel. You are gonna lose friends. Some of them are gonna turn on you. Some of your friends are gonna die. Some of your friends are gonna go to prison for a very long time, and you're gonna affect your relationships with your loved ones. You're gonna cause pain to your mum. And when the dust is settled, after all the problems, all the jail time, all the dramas, when the dust is settled, you're lucky if you end up with an expensive watch, nice car, and a pretty girlfriend just to show for it. Because that's really what you see people end up with when they're in their 30s. And these are the people that are looked on by the kids as successful, but they haven't actually achieved anything in life. You know, they haven't got a mortgage on anything. They haven't got their name in company house associated with anything. They've literally just got an expensive car and watch and a pretty girlfriend and a few holiday pictures. And that is really what it comes down to. It's not worth it. Yeah, people might look like they're happy, but it's all for show. If they can rewind time and go a different route, most people would. And these are the people that look like they're succeeding. Majority of people, they burn out. So, you know, you're getting people on drugs, people having serious mental health issues. Just look at their face, they're tired. You know what I mean? Tired. We're talking about 34-year-olds looking like they're 45, you know, out of shape. They're just tired. They've got no energy for life, and it's not worth it. You know, and that's the thing. They just have to look at what success stories are there in this life that we live in. You will always end up having the same conversation I'm having and telling the youth below you not to get involved. It's the same cycle.
I'd like to ask you about your previous gang affiliations. How did you get involved with a gang in the first place? And what was that experience like for you?
All right. So at the time when I was growing up, there wasn't really that many, as many gangs as there are today. So a lot of us were in unofficial gangs. Do you know what I mean? So I was part of the first group of people I used to roll with. We didn't call ourselves a gang. We were just a group of robbers. Do you know what I mean? We didn't have no we didn't have no territorial lines. We were just robbers. When I came out of prison, there was a lot more gangs that were emerging, but I was always not into the whole gang name thing, but I was doing exactly what gangsters were doing, if that made sense. So some people might say I was part of a gang, but me, I never actually saw that. I just had my team of people that I would rob people with, and that was my core set of friends. So for me, I saw myself as above being part of a gang, but I was a gangster.
And what kind of violence were you experiencing as being a part of a gang, or unofficial gang?
Everything. There's nothing that I haven't seen apart from probably acid and things like that. But stabbings, shootings, beat downs with weapons, hammers, nothing wasn't off limits. Nothing was off limits. It was just part and parcel.
I know that you're affiliated with this program, Knife Free, and I just wanted to ask you a bit about that. Do you feel that people who carry a knife on them, I mean, they usually say it's for self-defense, but do you feel that it triggers trouble of some kind when you're out because you're always ready to pull the knife out?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You hit the nail on the head. It's the same with having a gun. You know, when you carry a weapon, you're a lot of the time. I can speak for myself, but you've got a chip on your shoulder a lot of the time. So you're almost waiting for someone to cross you. Do you know what I mean? You're almost waiting. Obviously, there's times where, as life progresses, sometimes you're more on the defensive end of this spectrum. So there's times where you've done something and you know that people are looking for you. So it's a different dynamic altogether. But the initial feeling of when you're first going out there with weapons, majority of the time it's not because you're in fear. A lot of the time it's just for whatever reason. But the kids today is a different dynamic, so I can't always speak for their reasons because it's not the same as my time. So some of them that I've dealt with, they are sitting ducks a lot of the time in the area, you know, just by being in a certain area at a certain time, going to the shops, group of 10 kids roll up on bicycles. They're not going to ask you if you're affiliated or not. They see you, you're getting it. And that's what's happened to a lot of kids that I know that weren't involved like that. They was affiliated, but they didn't really have a reason to feel like they've got ops. Now they feel like they've got ops because they've been touched, or their brother's been touched, or their cousin's been touched. So a lot of kids don't want to get caught slipping. They don't want to get caught without it. So it is defensive a lot of the time. But also, if you've got a certain mindset, it can trigger to you using it for reasons where you shouldn't.
If you or anyone you know is being affected by any of the issues mentioned in this video, or if you'd like to be involved, please contact us via email, visit our website, or talk to us on social media. Links to all will be in the description.